began to stir these thoughts last night. She lives east of town, about an hour and a half or so. So I got in the car, drove toward Tyler, Texas from here so that I could go visit my friend Loriana. Loriana's life has changed in an instant. About a month ago, her husband, who she's been married to for about 20 years or so, they have a business, a thriving business together out in the Canton area, and they have built a life together, not only with their business, that again is a thriving business that people come from all around to out in the Canton, so that I could go visit my friend Loriana. Loriana's life has changed in an instant. About a month ago, her husband, who she's been married to for about 20 years or so, they have a business, a thriving business together out in the Canton area, and they have built a life together, not only with their business, that again is a thriving business that people come from all around to be beneficiaries of what they do, but they built a beautiful life together, a little farmhouse that they built from scratch, taking years, actually years, to find, this is what they love to do, find architectural salvage to put in the right places and to hang every single chandelier. They didn't want to use a lot of contractors. They literally used their own hands to build this business and build this home and create a sweet life for themselves out in the country. And she said to me, Priscilla, here we are at 60 years old, pretty young, 60 years old. She said, we were just getting to the good part. The good part of sitting back and sort of enjoying the fruit of all of our labor. But a month ago, as Willie, her husband, was taking on one of those projects, those many projects that he would do in their business, the handy projects that would be necessary to hang those chandeliers and find that architectural salvage and make things beautiful, he was using a chainsaw to cut through a branch of a tree when one of those limbs came back and smacked him in his forehead. He had a concussion. He got a fracture in his skull, and fractures in your skull heal like fractures in your ribs. It just takes time. The doctor can't do much about it other than to tell you just to rest for a little while. And so that's what Willie was doing. I have some voicemails from him literally right now on my telephone. He and I had just been talking over the last couple of weeks, Willie and I. He sent me a picture of himself in the hospital, couldn't believe he had hurt himself, and he was doing well on the road to recovery 4 weeks ago, but he's had over the last 4 weeks lots of headaches, and he's had a little trouble with his blurred vision, and he's struggled a little bit. Loriana has noticed that his anxiety level is higher than normal, that he's normally just a happy-go-lucky guy, but he seemed a little depressed, and there have been outbursts of anger that just have not made any sense. And I don't know if any of you got to see that movie that Will Smith was in last year called Concussion, where sometimes after a concussion, there is a traumatic brain injury that causes someone to spike down into a depression in an instant that is so severe that suicidal thoughts overtake them. And last Monday night, this happy-go-lucky, healthy guy went and took his life. And so I drove to East Texas, and I sat with Loriana as this tragedy, this unexpected circumstance, like John the Baptist, where you find yourself sitting in a place that you never expected in an instant. And I know in a room this size, there are so many of us that have found ourselves in circumstances that are not what we planned for, that we could not have in a million years thought that we would end up right here. With a spouse that is lost, with a child that we've lost. I'm thinking about Sweet Jan that just stood up on this platform just a few moments ago to pray over us, even though it is her body that is riddled with cancer. This is not a place she expected to be. The last time she beat cancer, we were supposed to be done with this. But here she stands in a place that she did not expect to be in a group this size. I know there are so many of you that right now are in circumstances just like John the Baptist, where you're sitting in a prison cell of your own, where you are circling around a mountain that is so intimidating to you. And what makes it worse is that just like John the Baptist, not only are you where you never expected that you would be, but it says that while he was in prison, he was hearing of the works of Christ elsewhere. Somehow through the grapevine, news was getting back to John the Baptist of this Jesus the Christ that was healing people, that was causing the blind to see, this Jesus the Christ that was causing the lame to walk and the dead to be raised. Miracles were taking place all around, but John's circumstances were not changing. It's bad enough to be in prison. It's worse to be in prison and you're hearing about what Jesus is doing for everybody else. And if the truth be told, there are a lot of us in this room, and honestly, we are discouraged, we are frustrated, we are disappointed. We have been encouraged in our faith because Charlotte has just told us how to circle that mountain. But if the truth be told, there are many of us in this room, just like Loriana, that are saying, are you the expected one? Or have I placed all my eggs in the wrong basket? John the Baptist hadn't done anything wrong. John the Baptist, in fact, had been doing everything right, y'all. He'd been preaching and teaching. He'd been rolling out the red carpet for Jesus. He was actually in prison for doing the right thing. That's how he ended up in that circumstance in the right place, in the first place. And you may not have been the perfect wife, but to the best of your abilities, you've been the wife that God has called you to be. And yet here you sit in this marriage that is so desperately in need of revival and resurrection, and you can't figure out how you got there. You weren't a perfect mother, but you were the best mother that you thought you could be. But still, your young adult child is now living a wayward, rebellious lifestyle that is in no way congruent with the way you raised them. And you're trying to figure out how you got here. You weren't perfect, but to the best of your abilities, you were being the grandmother or the career woman or the single woman that God has called you to be. And yet here you sit in circumstances that are not what you prefer. And John the Baptist is brave enough to voice what many of us want to. Are you the expected one? Or have I wasted my time? I want to encourage somebody today. I want to encourage the one of you that has sat through this entire day. And you know that tucked within the recesses of your heart, because listen, y'all. I don't know if you've ever sat with somebody in as raw of a situation as I sat with Loriana a couple days ago. I don't know if you've watched tears fall from somebody's eyes in so much desperation that they cannot talk. And that, like Loriana said to me, I can't even pray. She said, I can't find the words to pray. I have literally been texting Loriana recently over the last hours and days. I have been texting her prayers because I've just said to her, you just read this right off the page. Have you ever sat with someone who has lost not the first miscarriage, not the second, not the third, the fourth baby that they have lost, and they are trying to figure out, are you who you say you are? I'm thinking of my friend Sharon, whose husband has just decided he don't want to be married anymore after 25 or 30 years of marriage. And I wonder if you've ever sat with someone whose emotion is so raw because at this season in her life, this is just not where she thought she'd be. And maybe you're the one that honestly you can't even pray anymore because you can't find the words to say. What I want to encourage you about is just two things. As I pray God will just put an exclamation point on what he wants to do in our lives over the course of this morning and this afternoon. Of course, there's still the evening session as well, but I'm asking God to just seal this in your lives by telling you just a couple things. That when John the Baptist asked the question, are you the expected one? Or should I look for somebody else? What I want to tell you is that Jesus did not send back a rebuke. He did not send back a response of offense. He was not mad at John's frailty. That if you've wavered just a bit, if you've wondered, if you've asked questions, you need to know that our God is not mad at you. You need to know that our God sees you. He knows where you are. He knows where I am. He sees every single tear that falls from our eyes. And I want you to know that not one of those tears has been lost in the carpet fibers of your bedroom floor. Every single one of them have been captured in the palm of Almighty God.